Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly, speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly, speaking moistly.
Hello and welcome to Speaking Moistly, everyone. With me today is Jilly. How are you doing today, Jilly?
Awesome. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's raining today, which isn't terrible. It's not bad that it's raining, but it's kind of gloomy. It's kind of cool. Rain, I got caught in the rain for a few minutes, so it is what it is.
Well, you're
Archetypal,
part British, so you have webbed feet, right? That's
indeed.
how it works. Yeah.
Indeed. We used to go to the United Kingdom, like to England, Liverpool, Ellesmere Port is where my mom's family was, and is, I guess, still.
Okay.
And we used to go and stand. We went to Chester Zoo. I remember it very clearly because we got on a double decker bus. I guess I
Hmm.
think it was a double decker, and we were going to Chester Zoo, and it
They
was
all double
raining.
deckers.
Maybe there are, I don't know. But we were standing at the bus stop, and I was excited. And then there was a double decker bus, and it was pouring rain. And of course, we were like standing there in our, rain things, and then went on the second story of the bus to go to the zoo. It was great. I don't know. It was a magical time as a kid.
I used to love the double deckers and going up to the top, and then as an adult, I freaking hate them. But
Oh yeah,
because they wind up like the buses, the way that they stop and go over there, it's such a pain. So you're like trying to climb up the stairs, and they're like the bus is going like crazy, and
yeah,
it's like, okay, wait, fall
yeah.
back down the stairs again 6 times before you get to the top, man.
Yeah. The stairs are very narrow, and like you gotta get, yeah.
Hmm.
But
And weird, like the distance is weird on them, and yeah, it's
yeah, yeah. They're big wedges. They're big.
hmm
Yeah, there are
yeah,
there are flaws
plastic.
with a double decker bus. Certainly true. But when you're like a kid, they're magically awesome.
As a kid, they're amazing.
All right, let's get into things. The
Okay.
National Post is reporting federal government to teach non-racialized Canadians about systemic racism. Its $3.3 million ad campaign will target white middle-aged adults. I was going to say, what do you think they mean by non-racialized?
I was gonna go there. I'm like, okay, so I can't even speak now. Racialized. It's like not even a proper word,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
non-racialized.
it's very
Does that
newspeak.
mean it
Yeah.
is? It's a weird word because what is the exact definition of that? Is it just one word, white,
Yeah.
or not like a lack of pigment in your skin? And how do you control that? Like,
Yeah, it is. It is a very like it is. National Post at least says white in the subheading, but it is
yes,
quite an interesting way to like hide that you're just talking to the white people here. Like, hey, white people,
yes.
we got to talk about this racism thing. And
Well, that
really,
would be rude and racist. So
it would be
we've got to do it covertly so
right,
they can be racist without being racist. And
right.
I'm starting to think like, what did we miss from like old advertisements or whatever? Like since the time of no blacks can drink from this fountain. Since then, and we got rid of that,
Hmm.
what has there been in
Well, we
advertising or information that has been racist?
yeah.
Other than like against white people. I
Yeah, well, when you ask for an example of systemic racism, you're often met with, "Oh, this guy's racist." Right? Like when you
yeah.
ask for an example of it, when you say, like, listen, let's drill down and solve a
Hmm.
problem if there's a problem. And if there's not a problem, let's stop driving this racist wedge. But the problem is, just like with COVID and the numbers not really mattering all that much with regards to the
Yeah.
restrictions that are being rolled out, the racism, the real racism that they see doesn't matter all that much because it's victimhood that they want to bestow on
Well,
everybody who's not non-racialized. Like if you're
and the
non-racialized,
sad fact is those people who are going on and on and on about non-racial and we've got to get I don't know, some kind of equity because it's not equality, it's some kind of bizarre equity.
yeah,
Those are the most racist people on the planet
oh yeah,
because uh, they see everything through this certain lens of what color is your skin. And if your skin's a certain color, then you either need help, which is anybody who's not white,
hmm
or you need shamed.
Mhm.
and that's everybody who is white.
Right, and I think that it's quite funny because I'm a first generation Canadian. My parents are both immigrants, right? Both of my parents are
I'm
immigrants.
actually an
Both
immigrant, so.
there, right. So isn't that funny? And like my
Hmm.
grandparents, when they moved to Canada, on my dad's side, my one set of grandparents lived in England until they died and British, so they spoke English. But my grandparents on my dad's side um, didn't speak English. Like so, yeah. And my
Right.
grandmother worked at Eaton's, and they did they loved. Well, I mean, she loved that job. I don't know. They loved having her. She liked
Hmm.
that job,
Yep.
and she worked there until she retired, and they gave her a retirement gift, and thank you very much, and all that stuff. I thought, wow, like what a wonderful thing to experience, and then to be told, like, hey guys, this country that you guys immigrated to, terribly racist, and then to find out that I'm lumped in with all the white people.
Well, you see,
Shocking.
you need to get a tan, I guess. Because I mean, if that's how he's my I have an uncle who's actually from Scotland, and in the summer he looks like he is not Scottish. Let's just put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, so in the summer, is he a BIPOC?
Yeah.
But
My
in the
dad.
winter,
My dad is and like he's Greek, and so
Mhm.
he's got a pool, so he sits in the backyard from May until late September. Like he reads, and then he gets in the pool, and then he comes out and he reads, and he gets in the pool. That's what he does. It's great. Love his retirement. It's what he likes to do. That's what he wants to
Mhm.
do. But he goes really really dark, and like I'm kind of dark, but I'm my mom's British, so so a little
So
less dark.
you were robbed from
Yeah.
any potential of, being able to max out those pigments. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But my dad's hair is white now too, and he's got a mustache, so it's like
Hmm.
white hair, white mustache, and very
It's
dark.
dark hair,
I don't
yeah, or
know.
dark
He might
skin,
be able
yeah.
to get. He
My
might be
uncle's the
able.
same way.
He might be able to get a job at any of these companies who are demanding representation. It's a very very strange thing to have the federal government spending $3 million to educate white people in Canada about how racist they are and systemic racism. And
Y-
it's a very difficult thing to have any specifically racist thing that Canadians do, but they're
mhm.
still spending $3 million on this to teach us that, oh, you're
It,
terrible, you
instead of
terrible Canadians.
instead of trying to promote unity, acceptance, and
Hmm.
understanding, they're wanting to create and sow division. And that is, see, now I spent part of my life in Belfast, Northern Ireland, where people of the same color hated each other for arbitrary reasons a lot of times.
Yeah.
Um, and the thing that I always loved about Canada and what I always said about Canada, because I grew up primarily in Canada, and went back to Ireland as a teenager and then came back to Canada. And I came back and was so thrilled to be back because in Canada, it was so open and accepting. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from. You could go on to be whatever you wanted to be so long as you worked hard and were a decent human being. And all of that has been thrown out the window because the powers that be want so badly to be a bad place.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
that's sad.
it is. It is because we're not what they say we are. We're not
No,
we're
not
not
at all.
racist. We're not
There may be
racist.
racists in this country, and a lot of them are the ones that are saying, that we're all racist.
Hmm.
It's only because it's them that they're talking about. But for the most part, there sure as heck isn't systemic racism in this country. There isn't systemic sexism either. That is all a fallacy. They're making it up. And they can't seem to see it because they've so invested in that, I guess, to justify their own inner feelings. I don't know, because it just isn't true. You grew up in this country and you get to know that it's not about your skin color, your race, or anything else. It has to do with, are you a decent person?
Hmm.
Are you nice? Let's be real. If you're a nice Canadian, you fit right in.
Hmm.
And if you're a jerk, you don't. So, and you're going to be ostracized for being a jerk.
Hmm.
If you've got a chip on your shoulder, get over it. Pull up your bootstraps and get to work, and be a decent contributing person to our society.
But it's super interesting how you highlight those exact things that the government is trying to exploit to get people to fall in line, right? Like, if you're a nice person, then great, you're doing a good job. But if not, pull up your socks and start being a nice person. But that's, almost along the same lines as, be compliant and listen and do what you're told, right? And it's like, I
There
think
is a difference, though.
Okay.
To me, anyway, there's a difference between being a nice, decent person and accepting of everyone
Mm-hmm.
for the content of their character, to quote, Martin
Yeah,
Luther King,
yeah.
instead of looking at people for whatever physically is different about them.
I think that demanding that is a higher order and a lofty goal, a good goal, something to work towards. And I think that it's like, it needs to be clear that being a good person is not tied to obedience, right? Being a good
Exactly.
person is
Sometimes being a good person is standing up against those things that would otherwise divide us and harm us.
Mm-hmm. But it's being played in the media like good people take the jab, good people do what the health officer says to protect us all for the greater good. The people who don't care about you. They've got chips on their shoulders. They care more about their freedom than they care about their community or whatever. There's all sorts of. I'm sure just trying to come up with them off the top of my head, but there's all sorts of this tacit accusation to make it not politically, to make it uncomfortable to go out in public not wearing the mask, because then you're signaling that you're not on board with this whole thing, even if you have a valid exemption.
Jagmeet Singh had said that anybody who doesn't wear a mask doesn't care about other people, just before he was caught not wearing a mask hugging some guy. So,
right, yeah.
Their definition, I think it comes down to definitions, and words are important, but they're changing the definitions of words.
Yes.
I had somebody who calls himself a liberal the other day saying that liberal values, like fundamental liberal values, are terrible values. And I'm like, well, then you're not a liberal. Like look at the definition.
Yeah. Here's what it says to be liberal.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the checkpoints. Look at the checkpoints. Do you follow these things or don't you? Oh, you don't agree with any of them. Then you're not a liberal.
Then you don't fit into that box. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the definition of nice as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, right. But people think that, I think some things are self-evident. Like if you say you're a duck, and then somebody hands you a checklist of things that a duck has and you don't have any of them, and then that would be to me self-evident. Like, you're not a duck.
Yes.
You have hands that can check off this list. You're not a duck, sir. Right?
Exactly.
And so, but you can get into fights with people about things that are like self-evident like that. Like, you're not a duck. And then they're like, they don't say quack, quack, quack. They,
Hey, but you know what? I identify as a duck.
See?
Therefore, reality doesn't matter.
Right, and I guess that's it. And you have to understand the people or the battle that you're in, right? If you're, yeah, right. I guess so. I guess that makes
Do they
sense.
deal with reality or don't they?
But to tie it back, we're dealing with a government who is trying to use they are using $3.3 million to train white people on systemic racism, because Canada's they even name a specifically racist area. Where do they say? Thunder Bay, Hamilton, and Quebec are considered to be racism hotspots. You racists. Because of the high volume.
I mean, Quebec wants to be their own nation, so cut them loose.
Cut them loose.
Let them be racist.
Everybody would be
own.
so jealous of Quebec. Alberta, everybody in Alberta would move to Quebec. Just to be part of a separate nation.
I think you might be pushing it
That
there.
would be-
And you know what's really surprising is that Alberta didn't make the list whenever they're saying that this is like the white supremacist hot body. Like, it's like, really? And we're not on the list. Woo!
Good point. Yeah. Well, maybe this is just it's not just in Ontario. I thought maybe it's just in Ontario, but it's clearly clearly loops Quebec in there. So definitely not just Ontario. Very interesting.
Of course, Ontario and Quebec are the only parts of Canada that really matter. So.
Wow. If you're running an election, you're not wrong. Okay, yes. The price of meat.
No.
So I haven't in my travels, and I haven't been to Costco in person in a while. But in my travels, I have not seen the price of meat really change. It was $11 for about a kilogram of chicken, and then 2 for $20 at the Walmart. it's a bit more expensive at the Zayres, but it hasn't gotten like crazy expensive. Uh, for pork, it's been about $10 a kilogram, around there, something like, 2 meals, $10. Here is filet mignon for $70, $75, $72. So this seems expensive, and the Twitter account that's related to this says, check out the price of these filet mignon from Costco. Folks, this is the beginning of something very nasty. This is not your normal inflation, but the beginning of the end of meat consumption as we've known it. This meat will no longer be for you. You'll get fake crap. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know. How could I possibly know that? But talking about meat, etc., I haven't seen that. Have you seen anything out in Alberta to indicate that it looks like meat's going crazy?
Not crazy. It's gone up like $1 or two, not a huge amount. Um, but I keep thinking, okay, well, we grow or raise
Mm-hmm.
meat here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would like to see it's kind of like taking the guns away from the cowboys. Try to take away their beefsteak as well. I
Well,
just
right, yeah.
come on, give it a try. I
But
can't see it.
see, I
Uh,
thought that about airlines. I thought that about airlines with regards to the tourist sector. Like
mhm,
shut down the tourist. I thought that about bars. Shut down the bars on St. Patrick's Day. Holy cow, they did it. They did it with impunity. They didn't care,
mhm.
right? They were
And
like, yeah, you're close.
but I think what has happened for a lot of these things is that they have used fear and anger, which are the most divisive emotions that you can use.
Hmm.
They have used those things against us. The entire C-19er has been an exercise in pitting people against each other
Yeah.
and having them fearful. And I think people are starting to get over the fear because you can only have that adrenaline going on for so long. And then you have no option but to stop and go, wait a second, okay, what's going on here?
Hmm.
I'm hoping, and I think there is some of it, we can kind of see some of it happening, mostly in different countries because Canada takes forever to react to things because, we're so nice here.
Yeah. Incompetent leadership and a complacent public.
Well, yeah, and I think at some point we're going to see, oh, hey, if everybody else is reacting like this, maybe it's time for us to pay attention. And I think that's also part of the censorship and trying to control the internet because I think the biggest thing that has been a problem for uh, the the establishment, for lack of a better word, is that now we're starting to see because of the internet, we can see what's happening in other countries. It's not, it's sort of a mass knowledge of what's going on everywhere. So whenever you see that they're saying, for example, Ireland is getting hotter than anywhere else in the world, at the same time, Canada's getting hotter than anywhere else in any part of the world. And at the same time, Australia is getting hotter than any other place in
Hmm.
any other part of the world. It's like you can't have all of those at the same time.
But
Those are
see,
very different parts of the world.
yeah, but even with the internet, even with the
Mhm.
like instant knowledge of the internet, they still run with those headlines, and the people who read the
Yeah.
headlines kind of believe it, and then all of a sudden, we got $80 filet mignon.
Well, and that's part of what's going on right now is it's because you're reading the headlines in your own country because there's so many of them. There's so many pieces of information that are flying at us all the
Hmm.
time that
Yeah.
it's hard to discern what's
Hmm.
real, what isn't, what parts that you should be comparing, and then you have alternative media, which they're also cracking down on, who are saying, okay, look at these three things. They can't all be true
Yep.
at the
Well,
same time.
that's why they get rid of people like me, and yeah,
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 and Tucker
and that's
Carlson. Yeah.
exactly what's happening. Well, yeah, they're trying anyway. Um, and that's the thing. Like, I think there's a very dear friend of mine that keeps saying, "Look, we can't stop what's happening, but we can survive it if we're smart about it." And I think that may be where we are. We're just going to have to let this thing play out
Oh yeah, yeah. I
and
was
try to protect ourselves the best we can.
Yeah, I actually had two phone calls today, um, and just separate phone calls from unrelated people, saying like, "Holy cow! Like, are you paying attention to what's happening? Like, have you seen what's happening?" And not
No, Mark, for
panicked,
all of us paying attention to
not
what's happening?
panicked.
No.
Well, I think they were calling me because like they knew that I would at least say like, yeah, I definitely agree that there's something happening, and like we are. I said to one person, and I've used it on my show today. I said like in Nazi occupied Poland, would you walk around being like, oh, those darn Nazis, I dislike those Nazis? Like probably not, right? Like you've got to behave as if you're in the place that you're in, and where you are is not 2015 Canada anymore. Like things have changed significantly, and if you're not like on board, not that they'll find you and burn you out, but I mean they're arresting political dissidents, right? They're arresting Maxime
Yes.
Bernier, and
Hmm.
there's no reason to think that they won't continue that authoritarian tyrannical march, right? And it's like
No.
um, what you have to do is not take care of yourself, but like make sure, if you were in 1933 Germany and you knew for sure what was coming, could you have stopped it? Probably not. Like if you're
Probably
if you're
not.
if you're a
Not
person,
as an individual.
no, right? Like even if you could convince 20 of your like closest friends that this was happening for sure, and you were definitely not crazy, right? If you could definitely convince these people and they believed you, you still couldn't
Hmm.
stop it. So like,
No.
what do? There's no use in burning yourself out or martyring yourself, because what happens is you identify yourself, you become a target, and then you get discredited. I mean, they're trying to
Hmm.
roll out social credit. They've got soft social credit with Chris Sky. Like I've seen evidence of that with Chris Sky and no fly lists and things like that. So do you put yourself out there as a target, or do you play your cards a little closer to the vest? Do you play smart?
Well,
You got
I
to play
was
smart, I
told
think.
about a month ago that I had said something on Twitter, and someone DM'd me and said, "Don't put yourself out there as a martyr. You are martyring yourself right now." And I'm like, that sounds like a threat, but at the same time, like, maybe I'll just step back a little bit on that one. And
Yeah,
but
yeah,
and then again, you wind up you're self censoring whenever you do that. So
right.
it's
Well,
it's that difficult kind of.
it's a well, yeah. And if you're talking about something that needs to be talked about, right? And I don't know any specifics, but yeah, like I've had people reach out to me and say, don't talk about this, and it was hilariously enough about climate change. Don't talk about this; you could hurt people. And I was like, huh? Like what?
Since
How? Is
well, I
that
mean, they did
like,
declare they were warming us up years ago, saying that words were violent, and
yeah, right.
you know,
So now all of a
uh,
sudden, if you're somebody like in BC and a high powered lawyer and you say burn all the churches down, that's fine. But right, if you say something against the current newspeak, um, then you could, you know,
that's dangerous.
that's
Yeah.
very
So
dangerous. That's
incitement to
problematic.
violence is no longer incitement to violence,
Yeah.
but
Only
actual,
if you're inciting the right kind of violence, it's not
uh, of course, yes,
right.
because that's what it comes down to, right?
Hmm.
These are laws that are no longer. I mean, we
Yes.
do not live in a rule of law society
No.
any longer,
No.
because not only do the police not enforce the laws
Mhm.
appropriately,
Mhm.
or the judicial, or pardon me, before I get even to that, the ones that make the laws, they're not making proper laws. They're
Mhm.
actually their laws that they're making are contradictory to the laws, like the high laws of the land.
Yeah.
And then you go to the judiciary and they won't enforce any of the laws unless it suits this SJW agenda,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
craziness. So we have no backing,
Yes.
not legally. So
No,
then what do
I
you
agree.
do?
I agree. I saw an article from the ombudsman talking about how the public health officials don't have any oversight, and the ombudsman was receiving all sorts of complaints because of vaccines and all sorts of different things about public health. And
Yeah.
he basically said I couldn't help. Like there was nothing I could do to help anybody because it's not in my jurisdiction, and it's actually I couldn't refer them to anybody because it's not in anybody's jurisdiction. So, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
crazy. Like that
We
explains
live in
why.
chaos.
Yeah,
The
right.
anarchists have won because what do you do now? And then what's
Hmm.
going to wind up happening is that people are going to start enforcing their own laws. So you have all of a sudden, I think it was in New York where you have had a lot of vigilantism.
Hmm.
I think we're going to wind up with the same kind of stuff here, because if the police won't protect us, then we have to protect ourselves. And I mean, that's a whole horrible mess,
Right. I
but
agree.
that's what they're leading us into.
The rise of Batman from Justin
Yes.
Trudeau's Ineptitude.
well, you know.
And
I did. Justin Trudeau is in Calgary today. I think
oh,
he
is
was
he?
in yesterday. He came in yesterday morning. Yes. So in honor of him and his extraordinary abilities as Canadian leader, I have my just behind me here
Oh, your
my
Justin Trudeau
gift
toilet
from
paper.
yes, yeah, it was a gift from Kelly Lamb. And yeah.
Lovely, lovely,
Yeah,
indeed.
perfect.
Oh my goodness. Um, Roman Babber, you were talking about being in Alberta. You can go to a restaurant,
Yep.
like eat inside.
With no mask.
Holy smoke, eat
I
inside.
did it.
Oh my.
Yeah, in fact, let me see here. Last week we went for dinner at Earl's. No mask. Well, okay, it was the last day of the masking in Calgary.
Hmm. Oh right, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nenshi. He's a
yeah.
gift to
He's
us all.
terrible.
Um, so
At least he's not the governor
um,
general.
this is true because that was
That
a
was a
close
rumor,
call.
wasn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, so and then this Sunday I'm going out for dinner again just because I can.
Nice,
Because,
nice.
you know, I moved to Ontario in September and I'm like, I'm going to milk this whole freedom thing for
Yeah,
as long as I
yeah,
can.
yeah. You might just be moving back to a lockdown. Like, oh yay, it's lockdown. Madness, madness.
Yeah, it
Um,
is crazy.
but Roman Babber says no early move to phase three, says Christine Elliott, our deputy premier and health minister, pointing to an outbreak at a gym operated by special needs exception. But gyms account for under 1% of cases attributed to outbreaks in Ontario. Majority of cases are from outbreaks in settings run by government. So yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
you're much yeah. I'm very skeptical that we're going to open it all. I hope that we do. I hope that we keep on the track to being reopened and there's no like bumps in the road. But I've experienced the last 17 months now, and I feel like there's going to be a bump in the road between now and reopening.
It just seems like there always is. And I just love whenever Doug Ford is going, oh, it's because Ontario has like a much larger population than any
Oh,
other part of Canada. And I'm like, okay, but there's much larger and much more condensed populations in other
see,
parts of the world.
you're making the mistake.
So,
Listen, let me explain this to you. You're making the mistake of believing that the data matters. No,
yeah, I know it doesn't.
no. LOL. No, the data doesn't matter.
Reality doesn't matter. Let's be
No,
real.
oh goodness. What matters is what Dr. Moore
Reality,
says.
logic,
Yeah,
reason.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
My
nothing
friends,
matters.
my friends. Oh,
There is
Doug
no
Ford's terrible.
reality. Uh,
Terrible.
it would just,
Sorry.
it shocks me. Like, I can't fathom how we have such a dearth of leadership in this country.
Yeah.
It, it, it's shocking because, I mean, Canada is a difficult place to live in as far as environmentally,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying environmentally like, you know, environmentalists. I'm saying like it's a cold place
Yeah.
and we have a lot of issues. We had last night we had this horrendous hailstorm that
Hmm.
ran through. And my roommate went out into the garden last night and she's walking on the grass and she's like, it's actually like snow. It's crunching under my feet like snow.
Do
Like
you
that's
watch
how heavy the hail was.
Ice Age Farmer? Do
No.
you know he talks about?
No, I don't watch
Don't
TV.
don't
So.
watch. No, he's not. No, it's not TV. It's YouTube. Don't watch him
Oh,
unless
okay.
I mean watch him, but like
Watch him, but don't watch him.
yeah, it's
It's like
like
over your shoulder
well,
to the
it's one
corner
of
of
those
your eye.
you can't unknow things. If you know things and then all of a sudden, right? It's like, but at the same time, right? Everybody should be as prepared as possible, but you can't unknow things. So
Yes.
right? It's
Mm,
knowledge is dangerous. Knowledge is power.
yeah,
Right?
well, ignorance is bliss, right?
Indeed, sometimes, right up until it bites you, right? Like,
Yeah, well, this is true, but you know, it'd be nice to be ignorant up until the bite.
maybe,
Maybe.
maybe. But we're waking up
At
and
least
saying,
you
"What
could be
happened? What happened
blissfully
to
unaware.
Canada?" Yeah. Don
Yeah, well, I
Martin.
mean, this is it.
Don
Hmm.
Martin says.
John Martin.
Don Martin's talking about making it up as they go. The Liberals don't seem to have a plan for the border. People are pressuring Trudeau.
Okay. But I
Well,
have to say,
yeah.
the Liberals have a plan for anything? Really?
Yeah, I think it has to do like China has a plan.
Exactly. The Liberals don't have a plan, so they're
Okay.
susceptible to anybody else's plan.
I guess so. I guess so. Maybe they haven't been instructed on what to do with the border, or they've been told to keep it closed. I'm not sure. I don't know what the
Well, it makes no sense.
long term plan.
So,
Keeping it closed. It doesn't make sense from a business point of view or for a betterment of our country point of view, but it makes sense within the scope of a communist takeover, like, and crippling the country and
Yeah.
manufacturing a supply chain break or a supply chain strain, right? Which
Yeah.
we're still locked down. Like, it's complete madness. There's no
Mm-hmm.
reason for this. One of the news articles talked today about how the numbers don't support staying locked down. Which is why I said to you, the numbers don't matter, man. We could have
No,
we
they
could have
don't.
no deaths. Oh, that was yesterday. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It seems to be about something much more than a pandemic that swept across the world.
Yeah,
And I don't know exactly what the whole plan is. I mean, we have our ideas, we have some theories on it, but we don't really know for sure.
no,
We
no.
just can kind of follow the evidence and go, something stinks out loud here,
Yeah,
and it has nothing to do with a pandemic.
yeah. It's funny. It's funny how we can peel back things and look at news articles and talk about our individual stories and what's happening in Alberta versus what's happening in Ontario and
Hmm.
talk about the money the government's spending and the it's not really gotten anywhere. We don't have any answers. We could kind of come to the conclusion that something's happening here.
Yes.
I think I know, but it's certainly I don't have proof. Like, it's not like
No.
this is certainly what's happening. Like our fictional character going back to 1933 and saying, "Hey everybody, I definitely know what's happening here, and it's not so good. Like, come with me." Right? Like,
Hmm.
I can't even be that sure, but there's something certainly happening here. So, like, after half an hour of turning it and turning it and turning it, and then we realize, like, well, we don't know. And like, I think it's satisfying to talk about what's happening and to talk about there's certainly something here. There's certainly something happening, but
Well, yeah, it's like if we put
ultimately,
everything out on the table, can we figure it out?
yeah,
Can we start putting together the pieces
yeah,
and maybe figure out a way of getting through it, and then on the other side being ready to clean up the huge disastrous mess that it's going to be
hmm,
whenever cooler heads prevail, when common sense maybe comes back, let's hope.
maybe, yeah.
Um,
Well, it feels to me like we're not even. So if you do a big puzzle, or if you do any puzzle really, you have to do the outline of the puzzle. It helps to do the outline, all the border pieces, all the
yeah,
flat pieces, right?
the logical smart people do the outside
That's
first and then they do the inside. I have
crazy,
friends
insane
that
people
are very
start putting away.
they start putting together, oh, these are colors are all the same. Let's do
Right.
these first.
Well, I mean, there's an argument to be made for separating pieces into colors. I know there's like arguments about how to do puzzles. It's like Scrabble, man. If you start or
No.
bikers, if you start talking about the wrong, and I'm talking like cyclists, not like bikers.
So, I mean, imagine this. Okay, so we know that there are all these issues with, I mean, things as inane as puzzles,
Yeah.
Scrabble, motorcycles,
Yep.
even computers.
Yes.
Apple versus,
Oh man.
PC. I mean, that's wars have been fought. Well, they haven't been
Gamergate.
fought
Yeah.
yet, but
Yeah.
there's all of these things that we can't get along on.
Yeah.
How are we going to get along on some of these other things? Like,
Right. Well, but I think that's the fault, the flaw of this collectivist thought. Like, we're all supposed to get along, and if 97% of people agree, then the 3% of people who don't agree are definitely obviously evil and should be cut off from society and ostracized like they're lepers. Like, and
yeah,
then
but now
we have
it's not even that
100%.
3%. Now you have like 53%
Yeah.
are the ones that are going, hey, wait a second, no. And the 47% are going, no, this is a good idea, and
Yeah.
we're louder than you, therefore.
Yeah, and there's like 2.5% who's kind of standing back, going, "Oh, I'm not going to get into this, you guys. You guys figure it
Yeah,
out."
you guys figure it out. I'm done. Actually, maybe that's the 2% that we were talking about. Maybe that's
Oh,
the majority. Maybe that's the 53%
yeah,
and these
maybe.
other parts.
Who
I don't
knows?
know.
But
It gets crazier every day.
it does. It does. And it seems like an interesting thing. But yeah, I feel like talking about it, getting the pieces out on the board and maybe trying to build that border of the puzzle is interesting. It's an interesting exercise to see what we can suss out. The more we talk about it though, and the more it seems like we get closer to what looks like is happening, the more crazy it sounds. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Well, they
I
say
don't
truth
like
is
where it
crazier than
goes.
fiction.
It's a crazy thing to think. I don't like that. That's
Mhm.
not good, right? Like, and not that I think that thinking it is a defect. I think that it is the conclusions that we've talked about are logical, and like what's happening in our world is strange. So I think that the fact that the theories that we're coming up with are crazy is a reflection of what we're living through is pretty crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
There's no other way of looking at it except for the fact that the crazy stuff that like that it makes no sense. There was this old theory. I think it was around about whenever Trump was elected, and they apparently were doing some kind of an experiment at CERN. And whenever they did this experiment, it kind of shifted the world a little bit, so that's why everything's so crazy. And I'm starting to think they may have had a point.
So we're living in sliders.
Like yeah, exactly. But we all went through the slide, the wormhole
All
together.
That was a
Yeah.
good show. I enjoyed that show.
It was. I loved that show. It was sad
Well,
we
until
never
it went
did
off the rails. And it was like third season, I was like, "Who did the little brother? Get out of here."
Yeah, well, you know.
All right. Final thoughts. Where can they find it?
Okay. Right now, best place is on Twitter. Just Jilly Davis 4, I think it is.
Jilly with a G.
Jilly with a G, yes. Although all my links are on jillydavis.com. That's my link tree. I have like tons of work to do to get that all set up. But I did want to do one final shout out to Chris and Trent. You guys know who you are. The horrible picture here of me, of, you know, all of these hopefully will get fixed, because they helped me get a new computer. So
Oh, okay, good.
yeah, so thank you to those two guys. They're like the best. So
Nice.
yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, you can find me at CanadaPoly.com. CanadaReport.co is my scratch pad. That's where I put all the things that I'm working on. And SpeakingMoistly.co is where you can find the back catalog for this episode or this program as well. So check that out. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything final to say. I think we wrapped it up pretty nice.
It's full
Yeah?
circle.
Full circle.
We know nothing. We
know
still know
nothing.
nothing.
Indeed. Oh, and my mouse stopped working. I was trying to start the Speaking Moistly song. Okay, here it is. All right, we'll start it out. Here's the Prime Minister to play us out. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week. Or tomorrow. It's not going to start. Oh, here it is.
Moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.
Oh, what a terrible image.